Mark, it's always a pleasure speaking with you. The last time I spoke with you was when I was at Rogers, and you came by there. We did an interview in the theater. We both had longer hair. I cut mine down, and same thing with you. And
Yeah,
the thing I was thinking to myself when we were doing the interview, because we're actually doing it also for my show on the mic with Rudy Blair, that was on Rogers Cable at the time.
yeah.
And the thing I kept thinking about was, if you could have told 18-year-old me that I would be interviewing you, um, a groundbreaker, platinum blonde, one of the greatest bands ever to come out of Canada, it would just been pinch, because
Huh.
I was the guy lining up. I was the guy going to Sam the record man looking for the vinyl to pick up the albums and the
Yeah,
12 inches and stuff. And, I was the guy who was driving my Camaro, my 86 Camaro T-Bar, playing your music, and would
loudly,
never
I
have
hope.
thought, oh, yes, very loud, and would never have thought that I have a chance to speak with you in person. And again, to me, it's a thrill to have a chance to speak to you again, man. So I got to say, right off the top, thank you for the music. Thank you for the experience, and thank you for the interview, sir.
You humble me, my friend. Thank you. You're
Oh,
always
please,
welcome.
are you kidding? I mean, when you think about it, do you really do you think about what you have done over the decades and how you have become a music icon here in the Great White?
Um, well, there's two ways I think most artists look at things. One way is what makes them happy, and another way is the thing they should never do, and that's compare their success to others. So in the grand scheme of things, I don't know if I ever considered myself any kind of icon or anything like that. I think I just really liked to do music and make music, and really it was mostly for myself. And in the beginning, all I really wanted to do was get paid to maybe play clubs and stuff and meet girls. Um, but all of a sudden, it just kind of went an interesting way. When I was a little kid, I used to, you know, my mom had this really long mirror, and every time she was out and stuff, I'd put on her clothes and do my hair like David Bowie. I was such a huge David Bowie fan, and I'd get like makeup on and stuff to look like Bowie, because remember that Pinups album with, and that was my ultimate dream. Every time I looked at that, it says one day I'm gonna be a rock star like that. I hope, or at least play one. So I think the first moments of my stardom, I was still in my head just playing a rock star. I'm not sure if I actually was one, because I'd only ever seen them on TV. I'd never been one. So it was really interesting. Sometimes I wouldn't meet people because I didn't want anything to shake what I conceived. And then I thought to myself, wait a minute, these people don't, when they meet me, I hope I meet their expectations of what type of person I'm supposed to be. So that really stuck with me forever. I hope I've always had positive interactions with any fan that's come by. Sometimes when you really want to be by yourself, or you've gone through some bad things, and you realize that's what you're going through at the moment, and when people meet you and they have you in their sights for as long as they've known you or been a fan of yours, and you really have to pull yourself out of it and just realize that the impression you're going to make on that person is really going to color their life and how they thought of it with their music. And I've always felt an overwhelming I guess obligation to ensure that their view of me and my music was always something that they wanted, which is another reason I never really said what I wrote the songs about. I paint pictures with my lyrics. I design landscapes for people to look at and then put themselves into it. Because when I was listening to music and stuff, and I remember being a kid and putting on parallel lines by Blondie and taking a bath, because we don't have baths in England. We don't have any showers. And it's Friday night, you know, hopefully get together with my mates or something. I was listening to Blondie and I'm thinking, wow, the way I looked every time I looked at a record cover or a magazine cover, I was more enamored by what they were doing. I wonder what they're doing at the time. Did they go to a party after this? What? Because I loved the clothes and the image and the way their hair looked, and anyway, Bowie would have his cigarette and look to the side with this thing like this, and just made me. I just loved every minute. So there was so much about the visuals and the image and imagery that made me just gravitate towards music. I didn't know that I had a natural ability for it, because I was mostly into sports when I was younger. I didn't know, which is odd putting on makeup and pretending to be David Bowie in that, right? But yeah, so it was an odd thing for me. I didn't know that I'd have an ability to write songs. And now when I do write songs, I write a lot. I try to write a lot. You know, a lot of it I don't release and give to other people to do. But I'm really thankful that I had that feeling of I was enamored. I was romanced by the lifestyle and the way they dressed and the way they didn't look like anyone else. You in the 80s, you met a rock star, they just looked different. 70s too, and the 60s, right? You know, going through regular town in the 60s, I guess anywhere, you know, everybody kind of looked the same, but the rock stars didn't. They were like, wow, and that's what made them bigger than life. You know, I met Keith Richards. I met a lot of my favorite stars, and Mick Jagger, and got to hang out with him and stuff. And they just reinforced all that groovy stuff I really thought was happening. So, and I just wanted that, and I'm glad I was able to have it, and I'm really glad I'm still able to have it now. You know, everything I do, I eat outside of music is generally for music. When I opened the Mod Club, that was all about music. When I got together with my partners for Jean Darlene, the new place, that's all about music. I mean, we've got piano player in there and great musicians popping by, and we have jazz musicians and all that stuff. It's really, really amazing, and it paints a picture of some of the times I really love the most.
Well, we love you.
That was a
We
long
always love.
answer. I'm sorry. That was a really
No,
long answer. You're going to
here's
get
the
that
thing.
stuff from me.
Look, I'm an old school guy, so I always love hearing the stories from back in the day, because I always put my head to, when you talk about a time period, I put my head on where I was, what I was doing, and things like that.
Yeah.
And I want to talk more about that, but there are two things I've got to talk about right away.
Yeah.
Number one, congratulations, Canada's Walk of Fame. The Canadian rock icons, Platinum Blonde is part of that. How does that feel, man?
I got a call from Gilmore from Triumph, who is on the committee. Previous to that, I just thought the industry was just simply trying to erase us from history. Maybe we were something bad. I'm not sure. The Juno Awards and a big anniversary came along. I'm not sure, it was like 40 years or however long Juno's Awards have been around. Maybe that's why they left me out, because I can't remember how long they've been around. But they literally had every human possibly making music in this country except us. Just left us out. One of the funny things is, a friend of mine, Michael, love him still, he owned a magazine called Now Magazine, and do you know that magazine yet? So they asked me if I would if I'd chime in on just give 5 of my favorite bands that were in the Toronto area, because they're doing the top 50 Toronto bands that come out of the area. So I I chose the Deserters, you know, because that was my favorite, and the Demics, and a few really cool bands, like the real punky bands. I was going through, you know, hey, Mark's cool, he's picking cool acts and stuff. And then when the day came, the publication was released, and And I thought I'd pick it up because it says top 50 and I want it. And so it starts at 50 and works down. And I said, well, I wonder where Platinum Blonde's going to be, where I'm going to be, what's going to happen here. So I get to the first 20 and we're not there. And I said, this is great. At least we're in the top 30. And then I get that 10, turn those pages, and it's now the top 20. And I'm thinking, wow, we're in the top 20. This is great. Maybe they do like us. I get to the top 10. I'm thinking, wow, we're in the top 10. And then, of course, it gets really slow because it's the top 5 in the big pitches. And I said, wow, we're in the top 5. And it just shows 4. And we're not there. And I was thinking, Jesus, are we number 1? I turn it over, and I think it was the Parachute Club. And I'm thinking, 50 bands out of Toronto all time, and we weren't even mentioned. We were playing stadiums. We sold millions of records, more than anyone who was even mentioned, and just nothing. And so I thought that maybe just people just, other than the fans, because we're still playing to 20,000 people here and there, and and doing tours and stuff, and so I figured maybe they liked us, but maybe the industry just, because back then the industry really had a hard time with us. I mean, the reviews we got, the things they said about it were just absolutely awful. The fans loved us, but we were real rock stars. I mean, we did rock star stuff, and Canada wasn't in for that at that time. They wanted clean, wholesome Bryan Adams. They wanted clean, wholesome Celine Dion. They wanted the clean and wholesome. They were not into what we were. We were real rock stars. We fought, we got kicked off planes, we drank, we did drugs, we caroused, we wrote music, and we played music because we lived that lifestyle. The reason I was so enamored with that lifestyle in the beginning is because that was the lifestyle I was meant for. It was more like it was preordained. So when he called me and he said that it's long overdue, and that we had been recognized and are now going to be on the Walk of Fame, and that they'd missed 2 years altogether because of the contagion and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of people going in, but I think all the people going in, including Lorraine from Parachute Club, I love you, Lorraine, who, because it's the funniest thing, because Parachute Club also have another part of our history too. We were up for a best video, and Rob Quartley did both videos, and I'm not sure, he might have done Lorraine's video too, but anyway, it was the Juno Awards, and what had happened is we had 2 videos in the same category, so it split the votes. So and we thought we're going to win this for sure. We're like the biggest thing on MTV and Much Music. We're going to win this easily. And they said, and the winner is P. And then you hear the P word, and Chris stood up, our drummer stood up, and it says Parachute Club, and he went, "Oops." And we've never won a Juno Award, never been honored with like a lifetime achievement or any of those things, and I'm not sure what it was about maybe a couple of us weren't, I mean, but this country is about immigrants, right? This country is, about people coming from somewhere else and making good. And I thought we were a good example of that. But when he called and finally said that we'd been recognized for something, it's like I just woke up from a very strange dream. And it seems that now all those industry people that hated us are not even in the industry anymore, and all the fans that loved us are all in the industry. so I think we waited long enough, and it finally came around to us, and it was a long wait, and it did feel bad, especially I think the worst I felt is watching that Juno's anniversary show and not even mentioning us, just we really kind of got bit by a vampire there.
Well, I can tell you, you are definitely not forgotten in our hearts, and I'm going to explain why in a moment. But I also want to talk about Brantford Saturday. You got a big show happening, man. People can't wait for this. How does it feel being part of this lineup, but more importantly, man, what is this show going to be like with Platinum Blonde performing? Because it's like, it's not just a throwback, but it's also a renewal of knowing that the good times will never end, and it's because of Platinum Blonde.
Yeah. Well, it's mostly a Mark Holmes show because a couple of guys aren't playing at the moment. And that's what it was kind of booked as, because I do a lot of my own stuff too. Of course, I'll be playing the classic songs because I wrote them all. I've got some new things I'd like to play, and a new single that's coming out that was actually supposed to come out before the Contagion, and I think I took a. It needed to be completed, but it had a lot of. There was an issue. The whole idea of the song was it was about opioid overdose, and Platinum Blonde, strangely enough, we may have girls screaming over us, but none of our songs were really love songs. They were mostly psychological based or politically based, or
Yes.
what's going on world interesting things like Sad Sad Rain. It doesn't really matter. It was about the IRA, and Sad Sad Rain was about acid rain at the time, which is a very real thing. And Standing in the Dark was written after I saw a movie called Threads, and I was just scared to death of nuclear war. So, and it's so funny. And then we got the first snowfall where I'm in England. We don't have a lot of snowfall, and it looked like the nuclear fallout that was in that movie Threads, and I was just, oh. So you know, I all that was written about that. So when I did this new single, I saw this program on television about this really nice family. I was went, oh, this is just like an American bubblegum family or whatever. The mother and father are very much into health. They all look very young, and they've got 2 kids into health, and they're all riding like 10 speeds and that. And the mother was going for a competition, I guess, 10 speed competition, and she got into an accident. And I guess you just don't know who you can give certain medications to, because they've never been addicted to everything, because they've never tried anything. You know, they've always been healthy all their lives. And she was given opioids to help with the pain. You can't really fault the doctors for that. How are they supposed to know? I mean, I wish there were tests to say, oh, sorry, you've got an addictive personality. You're addicted to working out, you're addicted, and that's an addictive personality. Maybe we should be careful with these drugs. And everything went wrong. She became so badly addicted, she didn't care about the kids anymore. She stayed in bed all day when they were trying to, you know, keep eyes on her. She would go downtown and obtain drugs that way. And she even went to rehab, and looked like everything had worked out okay, but in her mind, all she wanted was to get those opioids back. It was terrible, and of course she ends up dying, leaving her children. I know it's a really depressing thing, but that's what makes me write music. I'm sorry, it's called High to Be Low, and I was going to release the record and go on a bit of a chat show tour about it and why, and talk about you know, addiction and stuff. And we got hit by a contagion. We got hit by COVID, and that just basically ruled the airwaves. So I thought, I'm going to put this out. It's not really going to make much impact, and it's not going to really help a lot of people if they're not going to see it or listen to the interviews I do regarding the song. So we held it back, and there's a video to it as well. You know, showing the couple and losing, and then at the end it's you know, those Chinese lanterns that they let off into the air to you know, help with healing. You know, you are your soul sort of rising up there with them. And I'm an atheist, by the way, so this is the imagery to me is got a lot to do with people who are people of faith and who can. And you really need that thing, but the real reason for it is because as it ascends into the clouds, there are thousands of them, in the clouds. So it's really heavy message, and it had to be done properly. And I didn't want to just release it and throw it out there and then throw out a video and then see what happens. I was hoping to, do something good with it. So Saturday you'll see that song.
So,
And
if I can
it's
jump in then,
yeah, go
if I
ahead.
can jump in. So, in this show, are we going to see, in a way, two different shows, seeing the Mark Holmes of today to the Mark Holmes of Platinum Blonde of
Yeah,
yesterday?
absolutely. Yeah. And I know this is going to sound strange, and it sounds probably strange for a lot of performers because we all age differently. But my voice is modestly 1,000 times better than it was when I first started out. And my knowledge of music, my knowledge of everything, oh my goodness. If I can recommend one thing to anybody, musicians out there, is you have an interest in one type of music, which we all do when we're a certain age. That is it. Could be metal, could be punk, could be new wave, could be disco, could be electronic, could be any of those things. You really, really want to just make yourself 1,000 times better than you ever thought you could be. Learn other songs from other genres and learn them well. And learn 2 or 3 a week, maybe 4. I know hundreds of songs. I can just pick up a guitar and play and just do it as I practiced every single day. Because what happens is you see chords that you never would have thought about. I've written like tons, more than 10 top 10 hits. And I've never modulated one of them. I've never changed the key halfway through, like Living on a Prayer. It starts off in one key, then it modulates up and goes to another key. That was a regular thing to do to elevate the song, bring it to a new level. I never did that. I never even thought about it. And until I started playing songs that did that. And I'm thinking, wow, I still haven't done it, by the way. I still haven't modulated up. I haven't found an area where I can do that. We're going to do it on stage that night because when we covered Fire by the Ohio Players, that song modulates. It modulates up. It's from a C to a C sharp. So we're going to do it. It's going to be good. And in fact, we're doing quite a few songs from that third album that when we play live, it does get overlooked a few times, but there's some really good stuff in there. Now I'm a better songwriter, maybe I can appreciate it. But yeah, when you're really young, learn as much as you can about other genres. That is the key. That is the key. And I'm telling you, it will improve your musicality, your outlook on music. When I was a kid, I was in punk and new wave. I wasn't even allowed to like certain bands. You see ABBA, it's just for kids and stuff. Because at the time it was just for kids and people who danced in the discos. It was it was like the kids, huge dip, and then the people who went to discos who were about to be ostracized for liking disco when that American station came out and said disco sucks and everything, and it became like a big catchphrase. And I worked with Bernard Edwards, so I learned all about that moment where he because that was the third album. Bernard produced a lot of our third album. And Tony Thompson, I played with Tony Thompson from Chic, and my adoration of disco music is over the top. You think it's so difficult because of all the orchestras in it and all that, but it's actually super simple, and they're all based on these cool jazz chords, just like early rock and roll, cool jazz chords. And when somebody says, "What are you doing playing a jazz festival?" I says, "Well, if you think about it, what we do as a band and as a small band and a small unit, it's all based on jazz originally, because they were the first rock stars, hands down. They were the first heroin addicts and all that kind of stuff, and the first people to make the way over to France, where it was really happening at the time in the late 50s, early 60s, and because of them, mod jazz was created. And what came after mod jazz? The mods. The Who, you'd never think The Who came from jazz, not a chance. Led Zeppelin and all that came out after, but they were all mods in the beginning. You know, looking for new ways of doing R&B, doing American R&B, doing it. But really, American R&B was all jazz. I mean, you examine the chords of all the Motown stuff. I mean, during the Contagion, I learned Motown bass. I can session play Motown if I want to now, you know. And the upright bass was just one learning curve. I'm not sure I'm ready to achieve, but you learn a lot of things about other great players, like bass players, like Carol Kay, for instance. She was part of the Wrecking Crew out in LA, and then of course there was, and in Detroit, there were the Funk Brothers. It was like, wow, you learn a lot about that, and you see the sessions, and you see how that can fit into your life. You know, there were two when I was coming up, there were two types of people when it came to music. There were people who were fans of music first and people who were musicians first. Now, I found the ones that became really, really successful and became big stars and everything, they were fans of music first. The ones who ended up just sort of not really, maybe they became session musicians and stuff, they were musicians first. And there's an interesting difference between the two. When you're a fan of music first, you never lose that vibe, right? Just this is so exciting. When you're a musician first, it seems to be all academic. And a lot of those people became studio musicians and made a good living, but they weren't the band type. They weren't the type to be on tour. I mean, I've played with everybody, you know, Eddie Martinez, you know, all the great people, all the great players, you know, I see on doing interviews, and you know, I miss Bernard. He was what an amazing influence he's been on my life, and of course I miss Tony too. I heard Tony left us, and then you see every day on Facebook or something, there's some great leaving us. So when it comes to even seeing me on that Saturday night, like if you're a fan of stuff, you never know what life holds the next day. I mean, people are just gone. So if you get a chance to go see somebody, don't do what I did when I was in New York and I had a chance to go see Frank Sinatra. Don't turn anything down, mate. Don't say, oh, I'm just so beat today. Go to everything, because life is so unbelievably short. And the older you get, the faster the weeks go by, the faster the months go by, and the years fly by, and you can't do anything to stop them. You can maybe give yourself a toothache, and maybe the day will last a little longer, but no, it still doesn't matter. It just flies by. Everything just flies by. And the more you don't do, the more you regret, and the faster it goes by. There's an experiment where they put these people in a dark cave with no light, no way of knowing the time. They put them in there for 2 months, and you know, they were feeding, they were eating, I got their movies to watch, they had stuff going on. They didn't know when nighttime was, they didn't know when daytime was, they didn't know where they were. Anyway, so 2 months had gone by, and they came to get him and said, well, what's wrong? Why did you come early? They thought they'd been there for like maybe a couple of weeks at the most. See what happens? Don't let that happen to you, people. Nobody in their right mind, and I mean in their right mind, can tell you what happens after this particular existence. Nobody knows. Nobody will ever know. One thing is for sure, you ain't talking to anybody anymore when they're gone. You know, you won't see them again. And what their influence on your life has become needs to feed you all the time, needs to be part of who you are, and then you need to use that to move on and make other people feel better. And like, that's why I'm so adamant about telling younger musicians, you know, or what I've learned. And at the new club, you know, having these wonderful early, kids in early 20s who jazz musicians coming by and just the love of the music and everything. And they're just, they come to me for advice and looking forward to, how did you do this? And I said, well, it's because I'm a fan. I just loved it. I want to be everything. I wanted to have that image. I wanted to be part of that world, the way I saw it. The world, it may have been different from Mick and Keith and all the people I admire, because they were like my favorite band, and I never sound, and if you've noticed, none of my music sounds the slightest bit like the Rolling Stones. So that's not really, so, some people are into, they sound like they're the people that, but that's because they need to widen their spectrum, things they like and stuff. So, we never really sounded or did anything like the Stones, but I certainly do like messing around with the guitar, all his open tunings and stuff. And it sounds like Keith. It's his. He owns that one, so we've got to lay back off that. And Keith, I know Keith will be here longer than any of us, but still.
Oh gosh, yeah.
If you get a chance to see the Stones, don't pass it up. Don't pass it up if you got a chance to see the Who or if Aerosmith go by again, or the Blondie or Sex Pistols, and any of those people. I love Steve Jones. He was one of my good friends when I lived in California, and you lose touch with people, but you can stay in touch with them with the music, and hopefully our Platinum Blonde fans stay in touch with us for music, because it's strange when we play shows, because when we do the regular touring, the audience seems to have stayed the same age. And we got older, but the audience is the same age. And of course, I realized that they're listening to their parents' music, and they're also exploring because of the internet. So the record sales may have gone bye-bye for everyone, but the exposure and the new fans you get, that's a whole new wonderful world. And I'm not the greatest about it bothers me that social media stuff. And really I can do this and this. Come on, man. Why can't you just hire a label to go do this and that and the other? Because it's not the way it works anymore, right? It's not the way it works. People require updates. They want to know how you're doing. They want to see things. Me, I still care about mystique, and I love the mystique. So you won't see me going mad with social media anytime soon. I don't think.
Well, sir, I have to say, I cannot wait to hear you on Saturday. I cannot wait to hear the new music. I cannot wait to hear the classic hits. I just can't wait to see you on stage, because anybody who's seen you back in the day knows that you were born to do this, and to represent what you have represented for us over the decades has been an amazing thing. So I know Saturday's show is going to be amazing. I cannot wait, like I said, to hear the new music. But
and that's another thing. Just a quick mention of new music. It's really important to fans of any group. If that group or that artist wants to release new material, like I remember somebody going to a Prince concert once, and this is maybe a year or so before he left us. They said, he's doing all this new music and stuff, and I said, yeah, but if this was like 20 years ago and he was doing new music, you'd be mad for it, right? I said, allow musicians to do what keeps them living. Yeah. The past is a great place to revere and to reflect upon, and see your mistakes, see all your triumphs and things you did, and wow, that wasn't that great, looking back at the time of your life, because you can only do that in the rearview mirror generally, because you never know it when you're in the moment. But music, writing music for people who are born to write and create, that's living. The past, sacred, it's got its place, but it's not living. These people need to write, and they need to have their fans who love them listen and be open-minded. They have changed. They've moved forward. You see, the worst thing any artist of any kind, and if you're an artist, and if you're in a band, if you're a painter, if you're a writer, the worst thing you could possibly do ever is grow up. You can become mature, you can be responsible, you can get some things. Of course, I use the term responsible quite loosely in my case, but never ever grow up, man, because if you lose that feeling of wonderment, your art is over. And you know it when you've seen other bands try to get together in the studio and do something. Their feeling for it, they grew up, they became what they became, and they grew up. And once you said, oh, kids of today, once you say lines like that, it's over for you, mate. It's fucking over. Never say it. I see teenagers now, I just smile, look at them in their little clique and all dressed in there, and there's so many different styles, you know what I mean? The goth teenagers and you know, the hip people in the hip hop and stuff, and all different genres. And I look at them and I think, wow, this is such a great time of their life. I live vicariously through them. You know, I see kids mucking about, and I know how excited they are about this, and their friends are going to stay over and they're going to watch a movie they're not supposed to, and then they're going to talk about this, that, and the other, and the summer's going to last forever. It's going to be amazing. You lose any of that shit in your life, and if you're an artist, you're done for. If it's anything but art, it's what it is. It's people moving and changing and going through different stages of life. But if you want to keep creating, don't make the mistake of growing up.
Never will, sir. Never will. Thank you so much for this interview. And like I said, cannot wait for Saturday's show. Thank you again.
My pleasure, brother. See you then.